Fog and the Fury, the podcast where we dive into the messy, confusing, and fascinating crossroads of ADHD and menopause. My name is Simone Outteridge, and I'm your host for this episode. If you've ever found yourself wondering whether it's brain fog, hormones, ADHD, or just life, you're not alone. Millions of women around the world are navigating menopause, and many are also living with ADHD, diagnosed or otherwise. It can be overwhelming to navigate this time of life. In the Fog and the Fury, we speak to researchers and experts in their fields to help us make sense of it all and separate the nonsense from what is real when it comes to menopause and ADHD. In this episode, I'm interviewing general practitioner Dr. Paula Hade. Dr. Hade started her medical career in emergency medicine, but as a single mother of 2 young children, it was increasingly difficult to continue shift work. So Dr. Hade shifted pathways into general practice. She has a special interest in menopause and ADHD, having been diagnosed with ADHD herself at the age of 38. Many of Dr. Hade's patients are at the intersection of menopause and ADHD, just what we're talking about today on this episode of The Fog and the Fury. So if you've ever wondered, is this ADHD, is it menopause, or is it both? This episode is for you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hade. I'm so excited to have you with us and to be chatting to you today. So to start with, can you give us a bit of a background on, what took you from emergency medicine into being a GP?
Well, I always loved emergency medicine. It was, I guess, where I felt was the area I was most interested in after going through my junior years as a doctor. Was always just everything was constantly changing. It was like you never knew what was coming in next, and I was constantly on my feet all the time and moving around, and I guess never just sitting still. And I guess that was just where I enjoyed the most. But having 2 young children, I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and found myself as a single mum, and just didn't seem fair on them for me to be away at crazy hours. It was just not fitting into my life. So I felt like general practice was the area that would have suited my lifestyle better. It was a lot more flexible, and ended up just going down that path, and again had a similar variety, just in a bit more of a structured environment. Definitely gave me more freedom, especially when coming into school years, just being able to take things off and be there for the kids, and still gave me that variety of having a bit of experience in every area of medicine rather than just one particular subject.
Yep. Excellent. And what got you interested in, I guess, ADHD and menopause and hormones and things like that with women?
I guess the clinic that I ended up moving into was more of a women's health focused general practice clinic, and I had always enjoyed that area, but I guess it just sort of evolved that I was spending more time in that area and became really passionate about like seeing the effects that hormones had on women at all stages of life. And to be honest, when I first started in general practice, I can remember the first time someone came in to see me asking for a referral to a psychiatrist because they thought they had ADHD. And I thought, that's interesting. I'd not heard that one before. And okay, I wrote the referral. This person this person struggles with focus and then hyperfocuses on things they like. Great, I'm all over it. I know ADHD. That's what it's about. Sent the referral off. Over the years, had a few more people the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You hyper-focus on things you like. You can't focus on the things you don't like. And yeah, great. Send them off to a psychiatrist. Great. And then over the years, I didn't really think much of it until, I guess, about 2.5 years ago, I started to notice a lot of symptoms myself, and I hadn't really put them down to ADHD. Just thought it was like I was generally an anxious person, and only really was able to study things I enjoyed, but never had thought about it for myself. But I guess when I finally got my own diagnosis, then it became an area that I was very passionate about, and started to see more and more patients, started to realize the things I never associated with ADHD. I guess I realized that focus was not, that's the smallest part of ADHD. The focus, you know, that's the part that everyone thinks about. That's nothing. It's the emotional symptoms, and
Hmm.
it's the other impacts it has on your life, the way it impacts on self-esteem, um, the way that, you know, you find yourself people pleasing, the perfectionism. There's so many other areas that are so debilitating. And I guess that's the part when I realized how it was affecting me. I became very passionate about seeking answers for myself and helping other people as well. And I noticed a lot had to do with the hormonal impacts on ADHD, the way that, you know, children might show some traits until they hit puberty, with girls especially, and then all of a sudden it escalates. And the way that so many people with ADHD struggle in that premenstrual period as well, with the changes in the hormones. And then, of course, menopause, it can all just escalate again to a whole new level. And yeah, I think understanding what it feels like to live through that, it makes me extremely passionate about helping people so they don't have to go through the same thing, and being able to help them in any way I possibly can, being able to, I guess, come from a place that's a little bit unique. Not too many doctors have that experience where they can fully understand just how chaotic, just how horrible it is to live through. It's not just about focus. It's so much more than that. And yeah, I feel like I've got a bit of a privilege there to be able to help people, because I understand and I'm passionate about researching every possible thing I can do to help.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, that's amazing. And so you mentioned that like it's not just about focus or I think a lot of people too think, oh, ADHD means you can't sit still either, and that's not
Mm.
necessarily the case. And particularly I think for females and women and girls, isn't it? It's not necessarily
Yeah.
that you can't sit still. What are some of the other things that you see your patients present with when either they know that they've got ADHD or maybe they don't know that they've got ADHD?
Yeah, I think the biggest ones that I'd see with when people don't realize they've got ADHD, one would be extreme exhaustion and fatigue. So
Mm,
many people will come in, no idea that, like, they, you know, you do the whole screening and asking, are you sleeping well? And either they are, or they've got the typical overthinking that's keeping them awake. So maybe the fatigue is to do with lack of sleep there. But even the ones that say, no, I sleep completely fine, I wake up and I'm just exhausted within 2 hours of being awake. We do blood tests because they're like, I must be iron deficient, must be having something. And then the bloods come back plumb normal and they're like, but what's wrong with me? And I say, you know, check for mood issues, anxiety. No, no. Oh, look, always a little bit on the anxious side, or sometimes they don't even have any acknowledgement of that. But when I start asking, so how do you go at work? What, and I start to go through all this sort of ADHD stuff that I can recognize from what I've been through. It's not textbook stuff, but I often will start to find a real pattern that of this like ADHD type of symptoms. So they're taking a lot of energy to stay focused at work. They may be getting through the day just fine, but by the end of the day, they're absolutely exhausted because they're using so much more brain power than the average person to stay on task. They're masking all day. Masking, that's a whole other topic again, but so many people, well, I would say virtually most people with ADHD, they're people pleasing, they're putting on a mask, they're showing, um, yeah, the whole masking thing, trying putting on a persona that they feel is acceptable because they've been spending their life suppressing the ADHD, trying to act normal. That's exhausting. They get to the
mm,
end of the day and you're absolutely shattered. There is a level of tiredness that's hard for anyone to understand. It's like I would get home from work before I knew I had ADHD, and I felt like, how can I show up for my kids? I wanted to go to sleep on the couch. I couldn't talk to anyone. It was
mm,
just this level of fatigue that is hard to explain. And you think something must be physically wrong. You can't understand how it's not. It's it's just the level of energy required to just get through a day. Having untreated ADHD is just, it's
mm,
enormous. The other thing I see a lot of people, well, anxiety is a very common one that people come in and they think that even some people that think they've got OCD, they say, oh, I've got to keep checking this over and over, or they just feel generally very anxious. A lot of the time, the OCD sort of traits are more, they're actually coping strategies because their brain is so dysfunctional and disorganized that they've got to keep checking things. They know that they're likely to leave on the hair straightener or leave the door unlocked, and they've got to keep going back and checking things. And it's not actually the same underlying process that's driving OCD. It's more, you know, that you're forgetful and therefore you've got to keep checking these things. So the OCD traits are more like coping strategies they're put in place. Anger. Anger is a huge one. So many people come in feeling like they're absolutely crazy. They're lashing out at their partner, their family, and that's a really hard one to live with. That really is a soul destroying thing when you are lashing out at the people that you love because you're so overwhelmed and you're struggling to control your emotions, the emotional dysregulation that goes with ADHD. Yeah, just, you know, you might see some little tiny thing out of place at home, and instead of calmly going, oh, well, that's not meant to be there, your internal world is already chaos. And this one little thing can make you scream, lash out, and feel like the world is ending. Yeah, it's a horrible feeling to go through. But so many people come in saying that they have an anger management problem and they need help for that and they feel crazy. And when we sort of hash it all out and they realize they've got ADHD, again, it's this emotional sort of overwhelm of, oh, I've gone through this far in life and I thought I was a crazy person. I thought I was horrible. And yeah,
Wow.
it is fascinating how it affects people. And so much of the time, they've never considered ADHD as a possibility. It's
Mm.
because again, everyone thinks the little boy who's naughty in school, who's running around being hyperactive, or they think it's just a focus issue. And it's so much more.
Yeah. Or anxieties like having panic attacks all the time and
Oh, yeah.
perhaps not being able to leave the house. And,
Yeah.
if you can leave the house, it's fine. Oh, I don't have anxiety. Everyone worries
Yeah.
about stuff, don't they? It's that. I think that's a part of the challenge too, is how do you, um, I don't know, make sense of it for yourself when it's like, well, but you know, um, everybody worries about things sometimes, and everybody
Mm.
can focus on the things that they like. And, there's so much, I guess, correlation to a neurotypical person, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it's unraveling those things, isn't it, to make
Yeah.
sense for you.
I
Um,
think another hard part is so many people when they've got like everyone's got traits of ADHD, and people will say when someone tries to explain to a neurotypical person what it's like to have ADHD, and you say, well, I've got this symptom, and they say, oh, I do that. It's not a
mm,
problem. But is it, they're not doing it to the point of distress. It's not, that's the key thing with ADHD, is that all of these symptoms are causing extreme distress. So to the point where it's hard to actually function and live normally. You're impacting on your family. You're not able to, yeah, I guess the whole thing is causing extreme distress and dictating your life.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
That's a good distinction there, I think, is it creating an impact? And if I can go back a little bit to when you talked about masking and being tired with your children, what was it like for you before you had kids? Because obviously, we know you have kids, and if they don't sleep well, then that's exhausting. Even if they do sleep well, I think, just the whole having kids and thinking about someone else other than yourself all the time, and, having to be more organized causes you to be exhausted. But did you find that that was happening for you pre-kids anyway? Like you were exhausted, or some of like the masking stuff was working and then it wasn't?
Yeah, I think before kids it probably didn't matter, and maybe I didn't even really think that much about it. If I came home and I was tired, it's okay to go to bed. There's no responsibilities. You can just go sleep. And it's when you feel like you're failing other people in your family, when you feel like you can't show up for your kids, I guess that is quite devastating. And that eats away at your self-esteem too. You feel like a failure. You're like, well, I need to do these things for my kids, and I just have no time, no energy for it. But before kids, I think, and that's why, I guess that's why ADHD, a lot of the time people cope a lot better when there's earlier on in life, when there's less complications. It's with, you know, as the years go on, you get extra complications, work becomes more complicated, you get more of a senior role, you've got to do more, kids happen, family, like having a family to come home to. All of these things add to it. I've noticed so many people when they have kids, all of a sudden it's so much harder to cope because there's more complications. You can't just get away with your strategies that you used when it was just yourself and you could be selfish. I've had people, not that you were selfish, but you know, it's like you don't have to worry about other people. I've seen so many people when they get into a relationship, suddenly that unravels things because their coping strategies, like having things all in the right place, having their order at home, or, you know, you might, a lot of people with ADHD are perfectionists. They like things to be just in the right place, but actually maintaining that is really hard. So someone coming into your world and either you've got everything perfectly set out and they will move something that will unsettle you, or if you're someone who is in that stage of not maintaining order and things are very messy, you know where everything is, but to someone else it looks absolutely chaotic and they think they're doing the right thing by cleaning everything up, and that just throws you into absolute chaos as well. Or they're judging you for being messy or lazy and not doing things right. So it just adds layers of complexity as you go through life, and kids come into the mix, partners come into the mix. Yeah, just the general disruptions with life getting more chaotic the older you get and the more you've got going on. I think that definitely makes it harder. But when you're a young single person, you probably don't think twice about these things. It's just like, oh, I'm tired, I've had a day mixing with people, I'll go to bed. You don't have anything else that you're putting aside, so you don't think twice about it. It's just when you do have a partner or family, I guess that makes things a lot more obvious how much you're struggling.
Interesting. And are you seeing more patients come through, I guess, going through that perimenopause, menopause stage where, you know, potentially like that's one of the elements that's added to not being able to cope anymore, even though maybe, you know, maybe they've had kids or whatever's happening and they've still been able to manage, but now this period of life and the change in hormones, you know, is challenging them. Are you seeing more of that, or is it less of a distinction for you?
No, absolutely. What I see is it's almost like two groups. You get the ones who have full-blown ADHD and maybe they've gone through life knowing something's not right and maybe being misdiagnosed with depression, anxiety, even bipolar. I've seen borderline personality disorder. There's been so much misdiagnosis along the way, but when those hormonal changes come with menopause, you take away the estrogen, all of a sudden you've got so much less serotonin and dopamine as a result of that. And the symptoms just escalate to a whole new level. And they come in and they're just like desperate for answers. Why, you know, they were only just getting by before, or they weren't even coping, and now they're even more so just feeling like they're in an absolute state of chaos. Or then there's another group where I find they're people who have gone through life with pretty strong ADHD traits. They may have always struggled with focus. They may have always had a million things going on. They just keep themselves busy, but they've always had coping strategies that have worked for them. So they've never had that distress that makes it ADHD. They've just had the traits there and they've done just fine through life. But suddenly estrogen drops off, serotonin and dopamine, they all have dropped off, and suddenly their coping strategies just won't work anymore. And sometimes for that group, often they will get back to a place of being okay with just replacing the hormones again, rather than going down the whole diagnostic path of finding out they have ADHD and starting on a stimulant. But it seems to be those two groups that either, yes, they were always in a bad place with their ADHD, or they had all the traits there. It's just it was never really a big problem. It's just their little quirks, and they're able to get by with strategies. So yeah, definitely have two very different groups when it comes to all of that.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Okay. And I guess like what is when someone's coming to you for the first time, perhaps with a new diagnosis or, the realization now that they've got ADHD and maybe they're going through menopause at the same time. What are how do you walk with them through it? Like, is it medication? Is it something else? Or yeah, how do you go about that with your patients?
I guess everyone's very different in how I approach them. People that come in, like it's like it's very different, the two different groups. There'll be the ones that come in and say, I think I've got ADHD. And that, I guess, is very easy because they've done all the research, they've done probably been on social media and had a look at other people's experiences, which can be very helpful. And they'll come in and some will just say, can I go see a psychiatrist? I want to get a diagnosis. I want to get medication. Others will say, I think I've got ADHD, help me. I don't know what to do next. And we'll go through the options. Some people are very much like, I don't want medication. I just want to know and I want to find out how I can cope with this better. And I'm like, great, let's go down the path of setting up a mental health care plan, get them to see a psychologist. They can do the ADHD testing so they can confirm. And I guess understanding is such a huge part of ADHD, understanding yourself, why you do the things you do. And a psychologist that understands ADHD, and that's really important. Someone that understands ADHD is huge. There are so many psychologists out there who do not understand it. That's a whole different discussion, but you need someone who does understand it, because if they don't, I find it very hard for them to help with strategies, because strategies that help a neurotypical person, someone with ADHD, it's not going to help. Our brains are wired so differently. It's not the same as everyone else. So someone who understands ADHD can really help a lot with various strategies to help just get through life without going down the path of medication. Sometimes medication is essential in conjunction with the psychological strategies as well. But yeah, I always try and work out, what does this person want? Do they want to avoid medication at all costs, which is completely reasonable. But I always give them the option of medication, in that, well, they have to go see a psychiatrist to confirm the diagnosis first, and then we can go through medication options. But I often, if I'm sure someone has ADHD and that they're really struggling, I really try and encourage them to at least try medication, because the thing with medication is, for ADHD, if you take it, if it's a short-acting medication, within 4 hours it's worn off. If it's long-acting, after 12 hours it's worn off. Next day you're back at square one. If you didn't like it, don't take it again. But if you felt that difference, and you, I guess, knowing the change that it does make when you do take that medication, just knowing that, I do find it helpful to have tried it and to see the difference it does make to your brain.
Yeah.
To see how you function differently. And a lot of people realize then suddenly just how different their brain is from the neurotypical person. Like taking medication for the very first time, I just remember how I suddenly, it's a stimulant, but I've never felt so calm in my life. I never felt like that anxiety that was just so normal for me was gone. It was quiet. The whole world was quiet. I could start something and then finish it, which was, it was huge to be able to actually start one task and then finish it and then go on to the next task, instead of going a little bit from this to that and all over the place. And even things like driving just felt calmer. Everything just felt slower. And I just went, wow, this is not anything I've ever experienced in my life. And
Mhm.
that's, yeah, it's really hard to understand the difference unless you've tried medication that actually does that.
Mm. Yeah, wow. And do
Mm.
you find that some people like it works for a while and then they've got to increase their dose and then like is there a limit to how much you can take? And then if they feel like if they've maxed out, what do you do?
It's tricky because when medication works well, when there's a simple one that just works for everyone, that's when it's easy. But
Mm,
it doesn't always work for everyone the same way. One medication might work brilliantly for one person and then not so much for the next person. And everyone is so different in how they react to it. It would be so nice if there was just one that would work, but it's everyone is so different. I find there is a lot of people where they will get to a certain point and all of a sudden the dose that was working perfectly for them has stopped working for whatever reason. And I always think it's important to do full lot of bloods, check every vitamin, check everything that could be possibly underlying this. Looking into the stage of life they're at, is this a hormone thing? Is it because menopause has suddenly escalated and they actually need to change hormone levels? Or I guess just seeing what is the underlying reason is so important. But sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just not working for them anymore. And it is really hard because yeah, there is a maximum. Like you don't want to go above a certain dose with most medications. Sometimes it's as simple as if they're on a long-acting medication, we can add in a short-acting and help them to top it up, and we can do things like that. But then sometimes there's just nothing that's going to work, and then strategies are the most important thing. Optimizing every other part of their life, one huge thing that I'm so passionate about is when we do bloods, we check all the vitamins, not just like iron. We go right. So many people are too worried about iron and not beyond that, but going right down to all your micronutrients, getting your zinc, magnesium, checking everything beyond the standard lot of blood tests that most people are doing. Vitamin D, it's so important as well. But yeah, all of these micronutrients, they have to be just right with ADHD. You can't just stop at iron, and that's not the be all and end all. But too many doctors, when they do, like so many people come in and they say, oh no, I've had all my bloods done. But I have a look and I'm like, no, there's so much more to it. And we can optimize so many other things beyond just iron and medication. So just getting everything just right is so important. Optimizing the lifestyle factors, exercise, all of that is just, it's all very much essential. And focusing, making sure that we're not overlooking sleep, making sure that people are getting enough sleep is so important too. It's such a difficult thing to get good sleep with ADHD, but if that's not in place, everything else is just going to fall apart too. So you've got to look at the whole big picture. Medication can be really helpful. It can control symptoms in a lot of people, but there's also people where it's just not enough.
mm. Yeah, right. So it's medication's like one aspect of it, but it's only what I'm hearing you say is potentially a small aspect of it, and it's taking
Mm.
more of a holistic approach to things like sleep, exercise, nutrition even, and what's going
Yeah.
on in the body and stages of life. And it sounds like having a great GP like you to partner with and, you know, go on that long-term journey together potentially so
Mm.
that you can, help with decoding things is what I'm hearing you say. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So important, isn't it? Because I think we do. We just, we think, oh, it's medication or it's nothing.
Yeah.
And, if the medication doesn't work, well then, oh well, there's nothing else, no other option for me. So it's good to know
Mm.
that that's just, I guess, a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and forget, I guess for women, going through that later stage of life, if they are taking hormone replacement therapy or that type of thing, do you find that that helps with symptoms, or does it help with medication, or does it interfere with things, or like can the two go together?
Absolutely. I would say if someone comes in and they're at that stage where maybe they were in that group where they've had ADHD traits, they've gone their whole life coping just fine, and then suddenly menopause is the thing that pushes them over the edge. Obviously, there's some people who cannot have hormone therapy, and that's a whole different discussion again. But for anyone that can have hormone therapy, I think that is the number one thing to start, to get the hormones balanced first. That to me means then we go targeting actual ADHD treatment if they still need it, because some people, their traits will be manageable again once you reduce the menopause symptoms. So you give them back some estrogen, and their serotonin and their dopamine are back at levels where they can actually function just fine. You give them back a bit of progesterone and they'll sleep better, they might be calmer. That side of it often is the thing, like, just if we can get them back, take the hormonal changes out of the equation, that can be huge in how we manage things. So I like to balance that part out first, then think about adding in, like, if that hasn't resolved everything for them, they still are struggling, then we go down the path of formal diagnosis, ADHD medication, exploring that side of things. But yeah, I feel like that is, it's like what I was saying about getting all the nutrients just right. If you've got a massive iron deficiency, I'm not going to go playing around with ADHD medication initially. We want to get your iron optimized. Then what's the difference? Are the symptoms better now? Great. Okay, we continue on. Or if there's still room for improvement with medication, then we go down and explore that too. But I think getting all of the basic things in check first, back to like optimize everything else with the body, then that's when the medication is the thing that we play with for the difference. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like lots of different pieces of the puzzle that kind of need to come together, but there's lots of options that will, will help when you explore them. And do
Yeah.
you see any barriers for, women stopping them from getting help, with ADHD and menopause or either or?
Yeah.
Do you see things that are stopping them?
Yeah. One huge thing I see, and I always just feel so sad for a lot of these women, is when they come in and they have gone to various doctors over the years who they've said, oh, I think I've got ADHD. And they're told, oh, no, you're too smart. You've done this and that. You can't possibly have ADHD. No, you can focus enough to do this. And then most of them, when they come and see me, the number of times that they'll sit down and they'll say, I don't even know where to begin. And they seem nervous. And instantly I'm like, this person wants to raise the subject of ADHD. I'm right 100% of the time when that happens, because they're so scared to bring it up, because they've been shut down over and over about it. They've told other doctors who have just said, no, that's not right, because I guess the other doctors don't have an understanding of it. But they're dismissed often quite a few times before they come and see me. And by the time they see me, they're just scared to even bring it up. And there's so much shame associated with it. It's like there's a stigma that, yeah, I guess that's why I've gotten to the point where I'm so open about the fact that I've got it, because I try and, if people feel like I'm saying, I'm not ashamed to say I've got it, I'm okay with having it. I'm hoping that most the other people are going to start to feel more comfortable going, okay, this is just me. I don't expect everyone's going to go out and say, oh, guess what, I've got ADHD. In fact, I tell people, don't go around saying you've got ADHD, because people don't understand. They do judge you. You try and explain symptoms and they try and dismiss them and say, oh, yeah, I do that. And like I was saying earlier, if it's not causing you distress, it doesn't mean you've got ADHD. It's when you're getting all of those symptoms to the point of absolute distress, absolute chaos in your life. And because we go through life with people saying, oh, that's, yeah, I do that too, and trying to minimize what you're going through, it does make it really hard to be open and to share that. And when you have a health professional who doesn't understand it and they try and say, oh no, you don't have that, you've just got anxiety, or you just need to work harder, you just need to get more sleep. And they're basically dismissed with either being prescribed an antidepressant or just nothing at all. And then some people will go see a psychologist, and the psychologists, again, this is not me trying to put down any psychologists that don't understand it. I appreciate it is something that if you don't live with ADHD, is so hard to understand just how distressing it can be and just how the symptoms affect you. But there are so many psychologists even who have so little understanding of ADHD, and they try and, I guess, instead of saying to the person, look, I don't understand it, maybe go see this colleague who does understand it, they try and change it into a different diagnosis. They say, no, it's anxiety, it's OCD, it's complex PTSD. So many people come in and they're being told they got complex PTSD. Like, it's just, yeah, I find it very frustrating, because if they realized what is actually going on, it's life changing. Just finding out why you do the things you do, finding out you're not crazy, finding out your brain just works differently it's so helpful. And I just feel so sad when I see people who have been going through all this for years and being directed elsewhere. They're just people saying, no, that's not what the answer is, even though they know deep down, they know that's not right. They've felt different forever, and they're just coming up against barriers everywhere to understanding it. And it's really, I find that really sad that people would, if they don't understand something, instead of just saying, go see someone who does know that area so you can explore that, they're being told, no, it's not that. And so then they're losing time. They're going through more distress until they find the right person who goes, that's so obvious. Of course it's that.
Yes. Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting? And I wonder, part of it comes down to, what are they being taught in the degrees, and a lack of training? And
Yeah.
because I know, particularly with menopause, there was that recent Senate inquiry, and what they discovered was that there was just not enough time spent on that part of, learning about a woman's life. It was all up front in terms of, that the fertility age and teenage years and getting pregnant, but not much past that. And so therefore doctors were not, a lot, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of them weren't aware of, these things that women go through, and then what could be the treatment. And so I've also had doctors that are like, oh no, that's not it, and that's the thing. As a patient, I think you think to yourself, but you should know, you're the doctor.
Yeah. And same thing happens with menopause, and that's incredibly frustrating too. As I see so many people come in and they say these symptoms all feel very hormonal, and these people in their early 30s I'm seeing with very clear signs, not of necessarily menopause, but we do see even from early 30s your estrogen levels are gradually dropping. So I always say to people, well, they want to check their hormones. I say, well, what's the point? Other doctors are checking their hormones and saying, your hormones are normal. I'm like, okay, but did you see what their hormones were like at that part of their cycle 10 years ago? They're going to be very different from now. So that gradual change over then, a lot of women will come to the point where they start to feel things differently from even their mid-30s. And they're being told by so many doctors, no, that's not perimenopause, that's not hormonal, it's just, you're just female, that's just what's happening to you, and just getting a little bit older and changing. But no, you don't need to do anything about that. And I think that's so sad, because if we just gave them a little bit of hormonal support, it doesn't have to be full-blown hormone therapy, they don't have to go on the pill necessarily, but there is things we can do to support it. And yes, it does start to happen a lot earlier. And I just see so many women being told, oh no, you're too young, and it's just anxiety, it's just this, just that. Like, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I was reading the other day that the first sign of like perimenopause is not hot flushes or anything like that. It's actually that you don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
Like something feels different about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another way that we get, maybe not gaslit's maybe not the right word, but we are made to doubt our own knowing about ourselves as as women. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
guess then on the flip side, a question to ask you on the flip side is, are there people that come to you saying, "Oh, I've got ADHD," and they actually don't, like it's something else?
Um, no.
No.
I, I really, I've thought about that a lot, and almost no, I just don't think I've seen anyone like it's something. Yeah, I really feel like everyone that has come to me saying I think I've got ADHD, it's like because of this, I don't know if it's just because of the stigma that it's even hard to bring that up a lot of the time with a doctor, but most of the people have come to me after having done so much research about it, whether it be through actual like proper medical research versus TikTok and Instagram research, which is actually, I often tell people go look at TikTok and Instagram. The people's stories are so helpful. You
Mm,
suddenly, that's, yeah, it's a bit off topic, but with my, after my own diagnosis, I found so many Instagram people to follow that they were describing things that I never even realized was ADHD. ADHD, like the diagnosis was one thing, but then following people on Instagram and TikTok who are explaining their symptoms, and you go, oh, I've always done that. I didn't realize that was ADHD. I just thought I was crazy.
yeah.
To see other people living the exact same thing that you live is, it's just, it's nice. It doesn't fix everything, but you suddenly feel less crazy, less alone. And yeah, I think that's a really helpful thing, is to realize there's so many people out there that feel the same way. And yeah, I do think that the ADHD community is a really nice thing to have. But yeah, I think most people, when they come in saying they think they've got ADHD, they pretty much every time do have ADHD. And then another interesting part with ADHD as well, they talk about imposter syndrome, and almost every single person, when they, even when I say, yes, I agree, it sounds like ADHD, when they come back the next time, they're like, actually, I think I might have just all made it up. Like, maybe I'm overthinking this. This doesn't seem right. Like, no, it's probably not that at all. I'm probably just lazy. I'm probably just
Drama
crazy. And
queen.
yeah, I'm a drama queen. Yes. It's, everyone goes through that. It's like like you get that validation, then all of a sudden you're like, no, actually, no, it can't be. No,
Yeah.
second guess everything. It's, and I went through that as well. I'm just like, I'm making it up. I'm trying to find excuses for why I'm like this. No, I'm, it's just an excuse. Don't know why
Right.
we all do that, but it is quite fascinating. But yeah, to actually, when people come in and they say, I think I've got this, almost every time they do have it, and they've thought so much about it, and it's taken them a lot to come in and say that. And that's why any doctor that doesn't understand ADHD, I would hope that they start to go, okay, well, if this person's come in here saying, I think I've got this, if you don't understand them, please find out someone who does understand ADHD. Please send them somewhere else,
Mm,
because if you try and talk them out of that, when they probably, I'd say 99% of the time they do have it, you're actually setting them back a long way, because they're going to feel ashamed of even trying to ask for help. They're going to feel like, okay, a doctor told me I probably don't have this. And then they're going to spend however long until they get the guts to go somewhere else and ask, feeling crazy. And for a lot of people, that's years. And then they might go and have the same experience again.
yeah.
And it's just this constant setback. But no, every single person who comes in and says, I think I've got ADHD, I take very, very seriously, because more often than not, they do have it, because it is a really hard thing to say to someone and not know how they're going to react to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see people coming in asking for a diagnosis because they want stimulants. Like, No,
Yeah. Yeah.
just I don't see that.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not saying it doesn't happen, but from my experience and my patient cohort, I've not had that at all.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Okay, so final question for you.
Mm.
I guess for any women listening who might wonder, whether, like what we've talked about today, whether they're just experiencing that change in life or, um, maybe they've got ADHD or, they're not quite sure what's going on. Um, what's one thing that you'd want them to know, or, what would one thing you'd say to them?
I would say it's really important to find someone who understands ADHD.
Mhm.
Not everyone does, and that's the biggest thing. You can encounter so many barriers if you go see someone that doesn't have an understanding of it. I living it, I know it is really complicated. I get that it's really hard for neurotypical people to understand why we do what we do, why we are the way we are. They can naturally try and dismiss it because there's other, yeah, if they don't understand it, they don't understand it. But try and do your research, find a GP who has experience with ADHD, even go onto local Facebook groups. A lot of the time you'll find just asking on a Facebook group, go put an anonymous post, ask for someone who understands ADHD, because that's when you're going to start to get help and get pointed in the right direction. If you just go to anyone, it's a very difficult thing for the average GP to understand if they have no experience in it. So you just need to get the right support from the get-go. If you go to the wrong person, it will cause you to shut down and probably delay actually getting access to any help, because there are so many people out there who are still in the mindset of dismissing ADHD.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. And I think that's what's so great about you is that, you do have that, I guess, intimate knowledge of it, and also, that your interest and specialization in women's health as well. So those two things combined when we're talking about ADHD and particularly menopause, and, that sometimes it feels like of those two things, the waves crashing together, and then people's lives start to fall apart, as not just having ADHD but menopause and all the complications that go through that. So I think that
Mm.
finding a GP particularly like you would be amazing for everyone out there. So thank
Mm. That's right. And one other thing that
you.
I actually, one thing that I think a lot of people need to realize when they are diagnosed with ADHD, and particularly around menopause, that late diagnosis of ADHD, is probably the biggest thing with ADHD is self-awareness, and re-looking at your life when you do get diagnosed and trying to realize what's a mask versus who you are. So
Mm,
it's a lot of us will get to the point where when you get diagnosed with ADHD, you don't even realize you've totally lost yourself.
yes.
And ADHD, the masking is absolutely massive. We spend our life people pleasing, doing everything for everyone else. Sometimes relationships they'll be based on what other people think should happen and not necessarily what you want in life. So when you do get that diagnosis, or when you do start to think about it, trying to understand yourself is huge. Becoming self-aware, seeing who am I? What are my hobbies? What do I want to do with my life? Forgetting what everyone else thinks you should be doing and focusing on you and rediscovering you is the biggest thing. You
Mm,
really need to start to live for you and stop people pleasing, and much easier said than done.
yeah.
But a lot of people with ADHD, when they will not have a clue who they are. Their whole
Mm,
life has been about everyone else instead of themselves. And the biggest thing you can do is start that journey of finding out who you are and start living for you, not for everyone else.
wow.
A huge thing.
That is an amazing piece of advice to end on. And I'm thinking how powerful that would be and how challenging at the same time to
Really
unravel
hard.
threads of, Well, what was that masking? Is that really me? How do I know? Like, how do I know? That's a really challenging question, but I can
Mm.
see very liberating at the end of
Yeah,
it, once you
yeah,
discover.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Hade, thank you so much for being with us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Mm.
I think we didn't talk about many of the questions that we had
Yeah.
to talk about. But I think it's, it went perfectly and
Mm.
exactly the way it was meant to. So I appreciate your insight and your wisdom and your generosity with your time to be on our podcast here today.
Mm.
So thank you everyone for being here today, and I guess that's a wrap for our episode of the Fog and the Fury for this episode. So if your brain's still buzzing or maybe just pleasantly foggy, that's totally okay. These are big, complex topics, and we're just getting started. So, if you found this episode helpful, or at least help you be mildly less confused about what's going on, or less confused than your last Google search, we'd love if you subscribed and left a review. Perhaps share it with someone who might also be stuck in this topic of ADHD and menopause, going through some, changes in their life. Please share it with them. And if you've got any questions, reach out to us. You can find us on socials, and we have a Facebook group as well that you are welcome to join. So thanks for listening today. And remember, if the fog rolls in or the fury takes over, you're not alone. Until next time.